The Health Minister, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, has been placed on special leave. Mkhize is embroiled in an investigation by the Special Investigating Unit into an irregular contract which was awarded to a company called Digital Vibes by the Health Department. Now, the Tourism Minister, that's Mamoloko Kubayi-Ngubane, will serve as Acting Minister of Health. This is a decision, as we have said, that's left many questioning what exactly is the role of deputy ministers. I'm joined now by the former Director General in the Presidency, Reverend Frank Chikane, to talk to us about the role of Cabinet, in particular, that of deputy ministers. This particular term, Cabinet, may not apply to deputy ministers. Reverend, good morning to you. Because, as we all know, the deputy ministers do not sit in Cabinet. While we understand that, are you able to explain to us why it is that presidents overlook the deputy minister, even if they were qualified to get into the shoes of a minister who would have departed for one or other reason? And I say this because Dr. Joe Pasha is a medical practitioner by discipline, if I'm not lying.
No, I think, firstly, let's just get it clear that cabinet ministers are appointed as cabinet ministers, and they are sworn in as cabinet ministers. They've got a responsibility for the portfolios they are assigned to. Deputy ministers are appointed to assist ministers, but they are not constitutionally cabinet ministers. They do, by the way, sit in cabinet, but it's almost like observers, but the responsibility is that of the minister. That's how the Constitution is constructed. So if you're going to appoint an acting minister, that minister must come amongst the cabinet ministers. It can't be a deputy minister. Otherwise, you will have to appoint that deputy minister as a cabinet member, which is not acting. That's really the way the Constitution is constructed. During my time, I used to ask those who constructed it to say, but why did you do it in that way? The deputy minister must know better than another minister as to what's happening in the department. But the issue is that was the choice of those who constructed our Constitution.
I'm in a fortunate position here, Reverend, because I'm also talking to a political veteran here whose leanings are with the ANC. Have you ever questioned, let's say, for example, your former principal, the former president, Thabo Mbeki, as to why it is that deputy ministers, as you say, yes, they may sit in cabinet, but they're merely there as observers. The interesting bit is that they are members of parliament, which means that the president can simply pick one of them and make them a cabinet minister. They don't have to look really outside, so to speak, into party structures. They can simply pick someone because they are a deputy minister who is a member of parliament anyway, because as we know it, most cabinet ministers have got to be members of parliament first, with the exception of two.
No. That's why we don't have to make this political, because I'm speaking to you as a former civil servant. And I headed the presidency at that time, and I had people who worked on the Constitution around me. There were people like Minister Pahat, who was there with us in the presidency. And I could talk to those who were sitting in the Constitutional Assembly. But it's a choice they made. Whether it makes sense to you or me, it's a different matter. But I think there are different traditions internationally, and what they chose was a cabinet minister is appointed as a cabinet minister. minister, and a deputy is an assistant, but is not a cabinet minister. I'm saying, if you have to, for instance, if you appoint an acting president, the Constitution specifies who can be appointed as acting president. Is the deputy president or one of the ministers or the Speaker of Parliament? And you couldn't appoint a deputy minister as an acting president because they are not cabinet ministers. That's how the Constitution is constructed. So it's not a Thabo Mbeki matter. He was one of those. So the question was not whether you question Thabo Mbeki. Thabo Mbeki didn't create the Constitution alone. It was a constitutional assembly with all the parties involved which adopted that Constitution.
Yeah.
And I was involved from a church perspective during that time to help formulate some of the paragraphs in the Constitution, like, for instance, religious rights and etc. and so forth. Yeah. So we all participated. I asked the question, but why don't we make the Constitution allow you to appoint deputy ministers? And they said no, it was the choice of the Constitutional Assembly. Sure.
It's an odd one, Rev, because just my last bit on this matter, at a time like this of COVID-19, the deputy minister, we have seen him participate just as much as the minister. And as I said before, he's a medical doctor by trade. Would it not have made sense?
I agree with you. He's as qualified. He could act, and there would be no problems. But if the president appointed him now, all of you will say he's unconstitutional because it's the Constitution that governs what the president does. So you will have to amend the Constitution and allow deputy ministers to be acting ministers, which means you make them part of cabinet. You make them part of cabinet.
Okay. Let's then talk about the issue of special leave, Rev Chikane. Yeah. You served as an accounting officer in the presidency. I think the president just a few days ago describing the work of the presidency almost as an overarching sort of structure that looks into the work of government as a whole. The special leave matter, and I speak here with Kusela Digo, who is an employee in the presidency, who is on special leave. It would appear that it's for an undefined period. And I ask this because the Minister of Health now puts into that very same position of special leave. We don't know when this is going to go on for. What do the rules say? What does policy say?
Yeah, no, I did say when I was asked to come to this interview that I mustn't be made a current expert of government because I've been away there for a number of years. Yeah. So I think government can answer that question because they deal with the rules. The accounting officer is there in the presidency. They can answer that question. The parliament is there, can answer the question. So I don't want to be an expert of something I'm not dealing with now. Yes. The point is, I mean, the president, I'm sure, can use his discretion to give a minister a special leave or a director general. It's more in the area of leave, which is not in the area of discipline and etc. Because a person could take leave for different reasons. I mean, there's a moment at which Minister Nhlanhla was not well, and he was off for a number of months, and an acting minister was appointed in that space. So in a sense, I would say that, I mean, I'm sure it's a discretion of the president.
But Rev, as someone who has served in the higher structures of government, surely there has to be a piece of legislation or a piece of the rules that speaks to a defined period of special leave. It's got to start from date
No.
X up until... It
Yeah.
can't be special for government.
But I'm saying the Presidency is there. You can ask them. They must answer that question because they would know on which basis they made the appointment. Yeah.
All right. Finally, Rev, you are a veteran leader of the ANC. The issue of corruption, you have been vocal among other veterans of the ANC, and I remember you vividly at the time that the party was settled with the problems surrounding the former president.
Yeah.
Is the ANC and the current government winning the war on corruption and malfeasance?
Yeah, no, you see, I wouldn't want to speak on behalf of the ANC. If you asked for my opinion, because, you know, we form a Defend Our Democracy campaign to make sure that we act as a people of South Africa as the last line of defense, as I've said, against this corrupt brigade of corrupt syndicated people. Mm-hmm. And I am convinced we started our battle in 2015 and there were certain changes. We got commissions established. You got the NPA cleaned up and it's still being cleaned up. The police are being cleaned up. So the battle is huge. We as the people of South Africa have to make sure that there are consequences for any person who steals public money. And I think we're seeing progress. I mean, people are being arrested. People are being taken to court. People you'd never have thought they would. And people have been removed from their positions who you wouldn't think could be removed. So I would say we are making progress, and if anybody is still involved in corruption, they're going to pay a big price because the people of South Africa are not going to allow them to do that.
Parting shot, Reverend. I know I said I was wrapping. I'm going to be in trouble here as well. But listening to another veteran of the ANC, Dr. Snugi Zikalala, describing the credentials of the Minister of Health, the now Minister of Health who's on special leave. It describes him as, a man whose credentials are just impeccable. Does it disappoint you that he finds himself in this position?
No, I don't want to pass judgment. What I have said is that all of us are equal before the law. And if anybody gets involved in corrupt activities which are outside the law and unconstitutional, they must face the consequences, whether it's the president of the country. Fortunately, as a constitutional democracy, not even a president of the country can escape that, unlike in other jurisdictions. So we have a fantastic constitution. Even if you are my friend, if you are caught with your hand in the cookie jar, you have to face the consequences. But indeed, the courts will make the final decisions at the end. So that's the line we've taken as Defend Our Democracy, that everybody who is found to be corrupt or implicated in corrupt activities must face the arm of the law and let the law take its course.
Former Director General in the Presidency, thank you very much for your time. Reverend Frank Chikane.